Hello everybody, welcome to Live Scribbles with Jonathan. You can check out my website and my work at jonathanrector.com. I did add a donate button on there, and I feel so scummy even saying that on my website. Some of you guys had asked for it. It's there if you want to check that out. I will be in April, most likely anyway. I've done a little bit of research into it, but starting that, what's it called? Patron. I believe that's what it's called. Patron. I always pronounce it wrong, like it's a Pokemon or something. But anyway, yeah. So I'll give you guys more information about that. It's in short, it's up to you guys if you'd like to, and you girls, if you'd like this help, give me a little bit of extra support, and you can donate any amount of money you want. And it's kind of like Kickstarter. There's rewards for doing so. And you can set up a payment if you'd like to pay me for every video I upload on YouTube. If you'd like to just pay me once every month, all that cool stuff. Everything is still going to remain the same. Everything's still going to stay free. I'm not putting anything just yet anyway behind a subscription wall or anything like that. But some of the cool things I thought would be fun is for certain people that donate certain things, doing some Google Hangouts one-on-one. I know a lot of you guys and girls have questions about like critiques and stuff, and I'm honored that you even asked me to consider looking at your art and giving you my opinion and thought on it. But more information about that later. There's not too much new in news. I've just been swamped with work, the day job, and doing client work. The standard's wrapping up here. I'm getting towards the end. Finish line's in sight, so that's great. And then afterwards, just looking forward to spending some time doing my own thing in a little bit. But anyway, so to let you guys know, this whole hour is meant for you guys. So if you guys just want to sit in the chat, have some fun times in there with everybody, or just want to watch me draw, listen to me talk, listen to each other talk, all that fun stuff, you can do that. But if you have a question, please leave it in the chat. All you need to do is just put it in capitals so that I can see it real quick. And let me just grab the calendar because I just want to make sure before I say when. It looks like next Wednesday falls on the 2nd, which will be the first week of April, which means this show will be moving to Google Hangouts. So make sure to definitely follow me on Facebook. If you're not on Facebook, I respect that. Hopefully you're on Twitter. If you're not on there, just go to my website. I will post the link on there to my. I'm still getting used to the whole Google Hangouts, Google Plus, all that fun stuff, but it'll be on there. And I'm going to give it a test run for a month, see what happens. I know a lot of people have some concerns about the lack of chat, so we'll see what we can do. And other than that, what I will be working on today is, you guys sort of saw me working in Photoshop here. What I'm trying to do is get this fisheye look in perspective. So I made a grid using paths in Photoshop. Normally I just use the rulers in Manga Studio and, make my perspective that way. However, there's no way to fisheye, at least that I've found. So at least with what I know right now, and this is one of the beauties of this coming up year, I'm going to get to experiment a little bit more and learn a little bit more in depth with some of these digital programs to find out what's going on. So anyway, made the grid, stroked it like you normally would, so it's a normal drawing, and then I just warped it. Or you can go up to filter, I believe it's distort, spherize, and that's a little tricky. I don't get the control that an edit warp would do. Anyway, so I had that. I don't know why it filled the background with that cream color. It looks that gross cream color. So let me close Photoshop up. Come on, Photoshop. You resource pig. And I paste it very dirtily. Dirtily. We're going to make words up here today, too. But you can see in here it's gross. What I'm going to try to attempt to do with this panel is use these grids. Now I got some curve action happening. It's going to be very hard to get my line straight. All an experiment. There's a lot of shadow in this panel, so I'm not really worried. This was the first pass. Let me just clear the perspective so you guys can see it. I always like to have a rough perspective in there, so you guys can see in this first panel here. Kind of had this character. Some of you were in here earlier, saw me just gesture in this character on the right. And my thumbnail I already had an idea of what I wanted to do with it, but then I just quickly scribble in. You can see how like loose these perspective lines are, and I'm petting the lines. Big no-no you hear a lot of people talk about. I do that all the time myself, just to get the perspective in here, so that once I go in, the next step will be adding that ruler in there for the correct perspective, and then tightening up this gesture. And the same thing will be happening here. This is just what we call a stat, where it's a panel from another page or an issue. I just plopped it in there, so that's a quick write-off of a panel. There's some adjustments I need to fix in there. I think there's a different light source coming in, and probably change his close up a bit. Then we've got an outdoor scene, something we haven't really seen too much in the standard, like in a park and stuff. So that's what I'll be working on. And here's the perspective. Again, very gross. Let me actually kill all of this. We don't need all this spilling over here. And I'm just going to lower the opacity just so I can see it. Like as you can see right away, it becomes legible to some degree. Whoops, actually, my apologies, everybody. So let me bring all that top back. I put it up too high. We want her lower. That's better. Actually, what I'm going to do, just in case I change my mind again, I'm just going to keep it and I can delete all that fun stuff. And I've been doing my gestures and stuff with this brush pen. Really like it. Really like it for the loose work and stuff. But Ian has a question. Jonathan, is there a specific comic book you remember inspiring you to draw comics? Something that made you say, man, I want to do that. I remember picking up Spawn. I think that was the first comic that I actually purchased that my mom went to the comic book store with me, and I don't know what it was. Just like pick a book and do that. Outside of that, I'll be like, to be fair, as much as I love comic books and I want to do comic books, I can't pinpoint specific comics that made me go, man, I can't wait to draw comics for a living. I want to draw comics for a living. To this day, there's nothing that still makes me feel that way, and I feel kind of like that's a bad thing, a bad habit or something, because I know there's a lot of people out there that they know they want to do comics, and they've always wanted to do comics for a very long time. For me, it was more like video games, cartoons, Ninja Turtles, Power Rangers, especially Ninja Turtles when I was growing up, all that kind of stuff. It was just seeing that kind of action, and then when I found out about comic books, it sort of clicked. Like I can make a comic book, right? So if I can make a comic book, I can tell all these really cool stories that I wouldn't have to jump into a movie to do, or an animation or something like that, right? It's all up to me and whoever I'm working with. So like in the case of the standard here, this is all cool stuff. We don't need a gigantic production team to make it. And I think that's honestly what draws me to comics. It's not like necessarily working for Marvel or DC as much as I'd enjoy. I think I would enjoy that. It's always been about, it's such a unique vessel to tell your stories in. And I don't know, I really like that. But some comics that I really dig that stuck with me, I talk a lot about Joe Madureira, Battle Chasers especially. I think that was one of the first books that really got me going, like, holy hell. Chris Pacello did Steampunk. Man, that was a great book too. I was a big Spider-Man fan growing up, so I remember looking at Maximum Carnage. I've picked it up since, but when I was a kid, I didn't have the money to collect weekly or monthly books, so I didn't really know too much about all that stuff. Let me draw. There's supposed to be a character here, but yeah, no, there's like, I don't know, a lot of image books, and probably books that most of you probably never even really heard of. There was one called, I think Alvin Lee was doing a bunch, or Pat Lee. Pat Lee was doing a bunch of books. Oh, what was the one called? Damn it. It was about these like cyborgs that could, oh man, I wish I could get the name of it. I can see the characters, but it's been so long, and I don't even know how good these books did. But I just like the campy kind of stuff, I guess. So, sorry that didn't answer your question. I'm just trying to look at my, like the comics that I have right now. And I feel like I've got a lot of Marvel and DC stuff, but then I started getting into manga and Invincible from Image. Especially manga, it made me appreciate comics in a different way. Just like that's what I want to do with comics. That's what I enjoy about comics is actually sitting down and having a kick-ass story. I talked to death about a book called Shark Knife by Corey Lewis. I just love the format. I love what you can do in comics, and that's where my passion I think comes from. It's not drawing for Marvel or DC as much as I'd like to do that. That doesn't get me excited as much as finding a new book, opening it, being like, oh man, look at that. And oh wow, look at that story. Invincible was the last comic book that I've read where it actually, I got that happy feeling inside where it was like I have to buy it. Every time the new Ultimate Edition of Invincible comes out, I buy that without question. Such an awesome book. Rempa is asking, can you explain how to display passage of time in comic sequences by use of panels and why in comics the panel sizes differ in shape and size? Sure. Actually, that works out really well with this panel here, or this page actually. Just let me turn off this gross stuff and show you the thumbnails. I apologize. Please understand that these thumbnails they're like a little bit bigger than a thumb, and they're drawn very loose. But John, the writer, actually had this in his mind when he wrote this, and he has it right actually here. Panel 1. I'll just try to see. I'll read it to you guys. Panel 1. Back to the present for the sequence. Now this might be too ambitious to attempt, particularly with a black and white comic. So if if it's impossible, just disregard it. But I thought given the note on the previous page ended on, it might be a nice thematic touch to depict this transitioning from the dead of night to sunrise over the course of 4 panels. And he had some examples there. So what I'm trying to do is, the very first panel, I'm being very blatant. I have a, right here, oops, let me get another layer here so we can actually draw some stuff. So right here, I'm putting in an alarm clock that says 2 a.m. And I'm even doubling up to make sure I'm putting a giant moon with an open window. And there's a lady sleeping in the bed here with the skunk over on the right. So hopefully people understand it's nighttime, very, very early morning. Excuse me. In the second panel here, I forget what I'm doing. I know I have light coming in from the top. And I believe there was something I was going to do here. Let me just see. Low angle, holding a rated way, see angle from the roof. I can always view the sky, which is not quite as black. So it's not quite as black. So I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do here. I have to hope that the colorist can help me out a bit. There might be something I can do with maybe start putting some clouds showing up, something like that. And then the third panel, I believe it's, probably very early morning. There's light coming in. So I'm going to be getting rid of all of these shadows here. Most likely toning this down, this shadow here. All of that shadow's gone. And like I said, I'm going to have a lot more, like the light sources right here, pouring into the panel. And then this last page, or the last panel here, is the 4 characters outside. And I'm going to end like I started here. So I'm being very blatant with the moon. So I'm going to have the sun. Maybe I might actually change some of this over, put this tree on this side. We'll see. But I'd like to have the sun somewhere in there. And, we'll put, whatever, and some birds to make it look just to nail it, that it's daytime. And this kind of stuff, to be honest, hopefully your viewers or your readers, they're going to notice that stuff, and you'd be surprised how many people don't actually pick up on that sort of thing. As for, you could do other things too. I would highly recommend, there's a book by McCloud. What's his first name? Stephen McCloud? Scott McCloud, that's it. How to Draw Comics, I believe it's called. Or How to Make Comics, I think it is. And he goes over that kind of thing, like showing that. As for time, you could show little things like, I think the most famous example, or popular example, is the faucet. And you just show the faucet, and the next panel is it dripping, and the next panel it's gone. Next panel, it's dripping. Because everybody can associate with that. As for why in comics the sizes, the panel sizes differ, it's up to you. If you can imagine yourself as, oh, thank you, Scrail. It's up to you to imagine yourself as a director. I like to think of it as if you're filming a movie, even though this isn't a movie. But if you look at the panels here, they're all the same. I wanted them to be this way because it helps. Everything's the same. Like, this is all happening over time, but it's the exact same thing that's happening. Time is passing, and it's affecting these groups of people differently. And there's nothing drastic. Nobody's getting hit by a car. It's just, subtle things. People sitting. That's all it really is people sitting. Now, if let's say somebody's having the last panel was somebody getting hit by a car, I would most likely in that case, because it's an impact, I would probably get rid of this panel altogether, and I would have the character coming over the panels. I personally, I know there's a lot of people that they like to just throw panels around to keep it interesting, or just sort of around just to make it look cool. I find unless there's a reason for it, I don't like to do it. That's just myself. I know there's tons of people, if they could, they'd have triangles for every panel. They want chaos everywhere, or they want organized chaos. It's up to you. My goal is, as best as I can anyway, and as the more training and practice I can do, is to have it be as clear as possible. I don't necessarily need dramatic, explosive panels unless I feel like it needs it. And if it doesn't need it, then I try not to. And one last thing I will say is every script, I have this page here. I could give you guys all this page, and all of you most likely have a totally different page. So you just got to find your voice. Look at comics that you enjoy, and see what it is about them that you dig. See what they're doing that makes it enjoyable to look at. This panel here, I'm actually really liking the fisheye, but what I don't like, I'm just putting boxes here, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to grab some reference. It's a warehouse. I like Terminator. There's always warehouses in Terminator. I just need to see what this character is doing. Standing in the middle of a warehouse holding a radio. From this angle, we can see there are missing beams on the roof, giving us a view of the sky. Okay. So I want this character hunched over. He's usually like that. He might be a little too far to show a radio. So maybe the letter can help. I don't want to leave too many things open for certain characters. I'm going to actually make them bigger. Make them look kind of cool. This is the corpse, if you guys remember him. He's always got like the wild cape, so something like that. Again, we're gonna go ahead and fix that later once we get once we tighten up the gestures. And I might not even keep this here. One thing I'm gonna do something here. I'll just show you guys. One thing to always try to keep in mind is the flow as best as you can. I have this character looking down here. Now, if I can have you come this way, so that means this character's got to look that way, so that you look down at this guy, who's going to bring you back this way. We're going to try that out. So I'm just trying to tighten up a little bit of a gesture here. Oh, there's no surprise ending. Okay. Radio is pretty important, so I want to highlight that, but Trying to fix the brush pen here. Alright, so alright, just trying to make them a little bit more dynamic here, so we're just gonna move the torso out in front. Radio, whatever that's gonna look like. Alright, what are we gonna do with this hand here? Yeah, we like that. He's got the really creepy Spawn kind of cape. Kind of give it a circle around him. Maybe it's like a... We'll help use this for... Okay, so what I'm thinking here when I do this, just so you guys can see... again, I know this is all a hot mess to you guys, but we're going to have an open grid at the top, or an open bunch of... what did he say? Missing beams, okay? So he's going to have light coming in here. So you know this is going to be white. I want this background to be black. What I'm trying to do is stack the white and the blacks here, okay? So white, black, and then most of this guy is going to be like this in shadow, which would be your black. And the cape is going to be white and then black. And the whole point for that is it helps... Let me just see if I can quickly scribble this kind of stuff in. It's probably a little hard for you guys to see, but white, black, white, black, white, black. If you can think of doing it like that, it helps big time to make things clear. Now, whether or not you nail it, that's that's another topic. So that's why I want to have this sort of his cape going like a little bit of a ring around him. It'll just help give it some white space there. So let's just zoom out so we can see him. Cool. Okay. Ian, Jonathan, would it not have been easier to draw the panel first and then warp it in Photoshop? Was there a specific reason you opted to draw off of a grid? When I used to do comics on paper, what I would do is, let me just back it up here. So you can see this panel up top. This would have been my gesture, my quick scribbles. Maybe I'd have some quick perspective grid in there. That's fine. But once I have that, then I go ahead and I throw the gesture, a tighter gesture, I guess. Or no, sorry, a gesture from my thumbnail. And then I rough in the perspective. I know it's a simple perspective, 1 point perspective. It's hard to screw that up. So I know next I will add a ruler, like a ruler in Photoshop. Or if I was drawing a pencil, then what I would do is lightly erase all of this. And then I would lightly draw in a perspective grid. So all I've done here is get the grid in there. I know what the perspective is going to be because I already have it in my gesture. I know what I need to have here. I know where my 1 point perspective needs to be, all that stuff. All I've done is just put the grid in there so that my gesture can fit a little bit better to what's going on in here. It's a little bit different. Sometimes I actually prefer to have a grid in there and then draw it, especially when it's a big background. I know some people, they'll do it opposite, where you'll have like this guy, and then I'll gesture in, you know, okay, I want some boxes here, you know, this kind of stuff. And it's fine, because by doing that, you can see it. You can see where you want the page or the panel to go quicker and better, and there's nothing wrong with that. That step I've already done in my thumbnails. So I would recommend trying both ways. See, some people, you know, you grow by breaking out of what you normally do. So sometimes you might not be aware that there's a different way of trying something, and it might work for you a little bit better. So what kind of warehouse is it going to be? This is going to be let's put warehouse. Let's just see what we get. Warehouse. Why am I in Google Maps? Images. These are all such boring looking warehouses. They're too clean. Break it up a bit. Now that's a cool looking warehouse. That's a little darker. That's a cool looking one too. Sorry I got this off screen. You guys can hardly see it here. So let me find one here and then we'll throw it in. I think I'm gonna go with that one. Guess it's actually from Half-Life. So you know if it's from a video game, it's gonna be a little bit better than reality in some ways here. View image. That's huge. Okay, let's just zoom out a bit. Cool. Okay, now that I have that reference up, what I can do is got him on his own. Now I can draw in what we need in here. So we need some pillars. The one compromise that I have here, because I have this character so far in front of us, it knocks the scale of this place down a bit, which is kind of a bum out. Alright, so I've got one pillar here. Let me just zoom in there. I can hardly see the green. Just turn that up a bit. Just going to follow that green because that's our line that the rest of these pillars have to fall on. Is that the right one? Looks weird. I guess so. Drawing in this fisheye stuff's a little weird sometimes, but it gives a pretty cool effect. Where I got this idea, I was looking through the new Ninja Turtle books, and I always forget his name. As you guys can tell, I'm horrible with names. But there's this panel, and this artist, he likes to work a lot in fisheye. Let me just zoom out. See how weird that looks? Because I want this line to go over here. And if I turn the grid on, it's not... The line's going this way. Anyway, he does a lot of this fisheye stuff, and it just looks really cool, especially for like dynamic fight scenes and stuff. So maybe in a case like this, it's not appropriate. What I'm going to do, I know this is probably wrong, but I'm going to break perspective here. Just sometimes you got to do what feels right, or what just, eyeballing it. Oops. It's going to be tricky. Okay. We'll come back to this guy. Alright, so we need two pillars. Let's follow a line straight across. Starts there. Ends there. Just turn this off to take a look. Yeah, this is... now that I'm seeing it here, what I might end up doing is going back. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep it. I think there's some wonky things. We're just going to keep plowing through here. You never know. I don't want to forget about it this soon. You never know how close you are to something working, As you can keep... Sometimes I've noticed, like, if I was doing perspective things, sometimes I would just give up because it just didn't feel right or look right. And then I went back to it and spent like maybe 10 more minutes, and there's just like certain elements in it that once they were there, it was like, oh, well, of course it works. You just got to give it a little bit more time. But you got to be careful too, because sometimes you do that and it's like, oh, why did I waste all that time? Alright, so what I'm trying to do here is, I noticed this stuff in concept art, where you have something massive in the foreground like this. We've got like giant pillars, right? And if you can repeat those shapes more in the image at different sizes, it'll give you the feeling of how big that object actually is. So these lines are all curving in. So if we turn that off, you can see. Now, if I had like a platform over here and I had like some people up there, right away you can see how, you know, how big these areas are. And if we had like a person's face right here with an ear and a nose, it gives some scale to it, right? But if this guy was so far up in front of us that all you saw was a nose, it's a real weird nose and some lips, this guy starts feeling smaller in this whole room just based on the size of what's happening in the background. So we got bang, bang, bang. And another thing I've been noticing too, a lot of these people, when they drop perspective, I used to be of the mind of doing something like this, where I would, even though my character's here, I would draw all the detail in the background here, and then I would have my character here, and it's okay, I would just erase this stuff. But I've been noticing a lot of some artists that I'm following, let's say there's like pillars behind this guy, they'll just like, you know, faint in the lines like this around the guy, even though they should be straight, and all the detail just kind of like stops. Maybe some touch, but the detail around important things you don't really necessarily draw in. Hard to describe when it's in a gesture stage like this. But yeah, anyway, Ian saying, Jonathan, is the fisheye panel supposed to suggest that we were seeing this on TV screen or monitor, or is it simply a design element? Just a design element, but when you say things like that, it makes me concerned that this probably, excuse me, might not be working if that's the overall feeling that you guys are getting. Okay, so we got that there. All I did there was just draw guidelines. And we're going to put a straight line. Follow the perspective here. Sure do get a headache when you do this stuff, I'll tell you that. See, so this stuff's starting to get smaller back here, so I would just insinuate the lines back there. So let's see if we turn that off, if it gives... Alright, so now we're getting some space happening here. Now we're starting to feel this guy in here. Let me just turn that off so you guys can see a little bit better. No, I mean, if it was a security monitor, I mean, it'd probably be pretty cool to do an effect like this, actually. Just turn that down a little bit. Okay, so just want to have a couple more. It's one of these posts here, but so you keep forgetting because like the horizon line is like that. It's not straight across. So this stuff, it's all actually curving. Like even it's like this. You guys can kind of see it. Like the 1 point perspective, everything's fading into it. So it's got this weird. What I'm struggling with is naturally when things come in front of you, this line here should not be like this. Because then it looks odd. It should feel like it's going like this. That's the effect I'm trying to go for. But This perspective is telling me, like, no way, Jose. See, like, look at that curve. Look at that. That's wild. Let's get one more big one in here like this. And see how that looks. Yeah, it might work. Who knows? Who knows? This is what this is what Bubble sees all the time. Everything's all fucky. Alright, so we got that in there. Now, what else do we need? We need to get some window action, some walls. Isn't this the fun stuff? Perspective? Ugh. And we'll have like some chunky blocks and stuff. This kind of thing, usually just like to have like some big shapes. And then they don't really need to follow perspective all the time. Let's gesture and we'll bang up some stuff over here. Now if I go straight across, I don't know how I feel about that. Maybe like little walkways or something. This is the fun part of doing backgrounds, as well as the mentally taxing as well. I know for sure we need sunlight coming in from here. I also want to have giant windows way back in the distance so we can have some broken glass. A third row of columns. More columns. There's never enough columns. Alright, that way we can have maybe... I want to have sort of like that little bit of light kind of coming through with like dust speckles. It's always a cool look. Some more beat up. Alright, what does my reference got here? What are they doing? That's always a good thing to put in there, I guess, too. I don't actually have a floor in here. So we'll put the horizon line as our floor. And put some desks. Chair, we'll knock it over. We'll have one of the desks turned over, just destroyed. Like, who knows how long this stuff's been broken up here. Maybe we'll put something on its side. A file cabinet or something. Oops. Get those broken windows. Do your chains trick. Oh, the brush. Yeah, we could put some chains in there too. Chains never hurt anybody. Maybe we could also put some paper. I don't know, like, if anything's actually going to be on them, but just turn my gesture layer off. It's too much. It's too much. Let's take a look what we're looking at right here. So there you go. I mean, it's getting better, I guess. I don't. I mean, it's still the same kind of panel, just hopefully a little bit more dynamic, I guess. Starting to get straight lines here, and these ones start going real crazy. But what I really need to have happen here is we need to have some beams apparently, but I don't know if I'm doing triangle shapes up here or what for this warehouse. Triangle shapes will make it look a little interesting, I guess. Add some more different add some different shapes to what's going on. I think what I'll do here, just make it look like the roof is kind of broken up a bit. You still get that dust. So what I would like to do is have dust coming in from here, the dust speckles, and have some dust speckles here so that people, hopefully when they look, they can see, okay, oh, light's coming through. It's the same sort of action happening. And break up some of the light there. Yeah, so I mean, I think that's enough information for me to tighten up the figure, maybe some more stuff in there. This third one I'll address later, but I just want to look. It looks like we've got about 15 minutes left, so if you guys have any comments or questions or anything like that, by all means, throw them in the chat, and we'll try to address them. And I'm going to do a little something different with this last panel. Let me just save my reference here. Homeless people, I mean, they would probably work. I don't know, like they weren't in the script. So all it says is a warehouse. It doesn't say if it's beat up, if it's a clean warehouse, if it's anywhere important. So I just got to be careful. It's kind of like left up to my discretion, I guess. And I don't know why this character's there, to be honest with you. So I put homeless people in there. I don't know if that makes him look bad or if it makes him look good. I don't know. Reference. Just enjoying watching you draw, clean nuggets of his. Right on. Awesome. Alright. Okay, so this last panel here. Actually, what I want to talk about too. Let me just understand what I have to. Long shot of them two sitting on the same park bench we're sitting on in the last scene. Here, look at the bench from behind, so we can see that they are looking at the sunrise. So we're behind them looking at a sunrise. Okay, so the problem right away that's jumping out is this thumbnail, I believe. Oops. This would be the bench. What I didn't like about this myself is that nowhere does it, like, the viewer can't see who these people are. And unfortunately, they're supposed to be looking at a sunrise, which, you know, this is writing mistakes, I find, or at least this is, I don't want to say writing mistakes. I want to say it's the most challenging part of being a comic book artist, is that sometimes your writer will ask for what might seem like impossible shots, and this is where you have to start to get a little creative. You can't always pass the blame on your writer. And the reason I bring this up is because what I'm asked to draw in this scene are two girls sitting on a bench looking, and we know who these girls are. They've been in the story, but there's nothing about them that would make them stand out from any other women. So we're supposed to see them from behind as they watch a sunset. And as you can see, there's been no establishing shot of where they will be, and there's no establishing shot of who they are. So there's two things we can do. One is add a panel. I don't want to add a panel. So let's try to solve this. If this is the shot we have, or we could just make up a new shot. We need to show a sunrise. That's pretty powerful sun. Sunrise. I honestly think, as much as he wanted this to be a different shot, I'm going to bring it in a little closer, and perhaps we can have the one mom, over here with her arm around her daughter, and the daughter's looking at the sunrise. And I think this is enough information to let them know who these two are. We've seen the daughter on her own, we've seen the mom on their own, we've seen both, but I don't know. Outside of literally doing just... Actually, okay, let's keep that idea. And the next idea we might try here is the dreaded profile shot. So what if we have the little girl and the mom on a bench? And this is where it might get a little weird. Sunrise over here. I mean, they're not necessarily staring. Well, they're literally staring at the sun over here, but realistically, they would be, their heads would be turned as they're looking that way. I think we might just do that. It is a different shot. I might get away with doing something like this too. We're just blowing up the size of the little girl. Like this. Just to give a little bit more dramatic shots, I guess. I don't even know what they're saying here. What are they? I don't think they're saying anything. Nope, they're not saying anything. Let's see. What? Hey, Michael. Great to have you here. Ian's asking, Jonathan, do you have any scandalous thoughts about the coloring choices on the standard? I know the book has... I would say the coloring has had the biggest hiccups outside of myself not being able to turn around pages fast enough, which is why this book has been on for as long as it is, which kind of plays into... I think we've had 3 different colorists so far, and we've been lucky that we've got Mike on right now to do the remaining issues. But yeah, there's been a lot of... Like, I'm not sure how much of it's necessarily just with me as well, where if we've got colorists on the book and all of a sudden, they're expecting X amount of pages a month because, hey, if I'm signing up to do a job and somebody says, yeah, I'd like to do a 22-page book, we want it in 2 months, you're expecting it to be done in 2 months, right? Not 3 years. So I could see that might be a reason why some of the colorists have left, but yeah, I can't criticize people too heavily for anything really if my mistakes have been pretty big. I don't know what this girl, she's starting to look like a robot. So we're going to change this. Get it blue. Let's turn this off. Get a new layer going. Where do xenomorphs come from? And actually, what I might be able to do here, we're going to try a couple things. So let's draw a face. She's a kid, so let's give her the big goofy ears. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually have her mom looking at her. That way we get to see her face. And we can see that she's smiling at her. All right, so we got this. I was on this website. I forget where it is. I haven't been there in a very long time. I think it's called like Babe's Lab, or something like that. And what it is it's just drawing tutorials, mostly women, and of course that means they have to be babes, right? But this guy had this really cool way of. I think some of you guys have seen it, but if you draw a face, there's this triangle a lot of people talk about, and you fit everything inside this triangle, and you're good to go. What he did is he just kind of modified that a bit. So you start right here where your brow line would be, a little bit above that, kind of come up, and this point you're bringing up here is for the eyebrows. Kind of bring it in, thinking of like the side plane of the head. And then this line comes down to the bottom of the bottom lip, like that, okay? And now everything just kind of fits inside there. It takes a little bit of practice. I'm still not 100% with it, but I was enjoying the results I was getting out of it. So let's see here. So let's do some Loomis tech real quick. So from brow to chin, halfway is the nose, and from half to half is the mouth. Now, unfortunately, what happens here is now she got this giant bottom mouth, but I want her to be smiling, so it's okay. Let's just give her a big nose here. She's a little girl, so I don't want to be careful with the features. Yeah. Poop Town. Let's try that again. I think what's happening here is because I'm giving her adult proportions, which we don't want. So let's try it again. So give her a big old forehead, little tiny nose. Let's just gesture in where the eyes will be. Any new Guildborn news? Unfortunately, not. I haven't had much time to do any personal projects at all. I keep flip-flopping on which project to start, but I will say I've been on a huge Power Rangers kick over the last few months now, and I have a story already done. Not done, but thought out, we'll say. which also means it's nothing until there's actual like script outside of like a very loose plot. But I like the idea of kind of Power Ranger kind of characters. Now this face here is gonna take some love. Right now it's not. Yes, it is. babelab.blogspot.ca. Thanks, Grow. That's exactly the website I'm talking about. That site is it's actually really I dig it. It's not like it's not gonna blow your world apart, I don't think, but there's some definite awesome things on there. Little tricks that this guy has come up with here and there. And what I'm going to have to do is look up some reference of some kids' faces here, because especially profile shots are always a little tricky. She's looking a little evil, so let's just try to change that eye up a bit. She's a kid, so I just want to give her some big eyes here. I think what's killing it here is this giant mouth. Let's see how just regular mouth looks right now. Wow. We're going right back to square one here. Okay. I just need to look at this a little differently, that's all. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, Squirrel God should be down. I don't think I paid to renew it. It follows my lovely line of coming up with ideas and not committing. So, I would still very much like to move forward on that project. I just didn't want to throw any money at the website waiting for it. So, yeah, it's not up right now. It might come back up once the actual work gets done on it. So, I mean, thank you to everybody that bookmarked it and got onto the hype wagon with me. I'd very much like to have something going here after all this is done. It's just all this client work and then the day job. There's very little time to do anything, and it was actually something I wanted to get into real quickly. How many of you guys in here actually play video games? I love video games. I've been off and on them for a very long time, but just recently, I would say over the last 3 weeks or so, I've just gotten into. I spent, I think it was like an hour on the weekend or something, sitting down and just cleaning my old Nintendo and the games, and it was really calming. And that probably sounds really weird because I'm talking about like a Nintendo and how is that, all that stuff. But I really started getting into collecting, not spending tons of money, but just buying old games that I really enjoyed and spending an hour a night or every other night or something, just having fun. And I realized what it was that, or why it was that I enjoyed doing it so much, is because it's actually like a hobby, and I don't have a hobby. I know I talked to a few people in like my real life and stuff who are always bored and all that, and I'm like, man, how can you be bored? You can just grab like paper and just create worlds, and man, learn how to write a little bit. You'd be surprised at what you could do. You could start making stories and stuff. Like, there's very few things to make you bored, but drawing now for me has moved on from being a fun hobby, right? Like that ship has gone and sailed. It's long gone, and now it's work. It's work to do this stuff. It's not that it's not fun work, but it's definitely work. And so I don't know. I just came to that realization that it's just missing a hobby, and I haven't really had much time for a hobby. Because of the work. And it's one more thing that I'm, again, excited to move on from doing some client work for a little bit so I can just have some fun. But yeah, so what I was asking you guys was, how many of you in the room play video games? I'm not going to criticize how long you play and how much you should actually, be drawing instead of playing games. If it starts to take up so much of your time where it starts to become a little bit of you'd rather do that than the work of drawing. Rempa saying, I got rid of my PS3 and 3DS so I would spend more time drawing over playing games. Ian, my PS3 processor soldiers, what? Oh, processor fails every 5 minutes. Got a bit tired of taking it apart. Yeah, it's pretty crappy. And yeah, I've I've actually sold and rebought video game systems many times. Just for that, it was little excuses like, even if it's a couple minutes here and there, it's time I should be drawing. And there's an argument for that. I'm not gonna start getting into telling people what they should and shouldn't do with their own time, you know. But anyway, I'm having fun doing that stuff. Maybe it's just a little fun distraction. Man, this is not working out for me. It's not necessarily that it's just this perspective, but it's because it's a kid's face here. Let's try this one more time before we wrap up. It's great. I'm a PC gamer, not so much console. Okay. Michael, my addiction involves getting outside in the sun and hiking and jumping off things. Yep. Physical activity is always good. Okay. Alright, so get her neck in here. Get the big shoulders. Alright, now we're getting somewhere. Now let's just bring these up a little bit. Alright, so I think what the problem was that I was having here was proportion. I was giving her mom proportions, proportion her mom's gonna have, or like teenagers or whatever. But you know, I just wasn't thinking in the lines of kids correctly. So like, from what I understand, anyway, I'm just shooting this out my butt. But so that would have been a normal. This right here is like an adult face, cool. But like the smaller the kid gets, it's like this circle with like a jaw that sticks out like this. You know, this little nose, like these big old goofy eyes, and it's just like, I don't know. It's like chibi characters. So this should turn out a little bit better now. We're just gonna go here and botch it all. Just 1 second. So let me screw it up here. I'll just a little Disney nose. Big pouty lips. Maybe where the neck goes. And the big goofy ears. Now the dangerous part, the eyes. Let's go more cartoony with her, I guess. And then her hair go this way. Just bang, bang. I have to figure out her haircut. I'm pretty sure it's ponytails like a kid normally has. Break up the neck part with some more. It should look a little bit better. What's that? Just has some pigtails. Exactly, pigtails. It's a kid. So it's a little bit better. what we had before. I think I still have what we had before. Let's see if we can find it. No, I guess I erased it. And we'll just do a little flip, see what it is. So, you think it was how the eyes were? Yeah, it definitely could have been the eyes. Let me just see something here. Even though I just said something about her forehead, it's looking a little bit... I think maybe it's too brutal of a forehead. I have, I believe, like 6 pages left of the standard. So we're getting there. I don't know if I want that lip on her. No, I don't think so. I'll figure out the rest. 4 more days, yeah. Honestly, guys, after a full-time day job, coming home, I have about 4 hours of pure drawing time, if that's all I do, minus other things like looking after your house and stuff, right? So it's very difficult to hammer this out, which is playing into why it's taking so long. They're all excuses, what I'm saying. All of us can sacrifice sleep. I understand that. But yeah, so that's why it's such a relief to have Will Robson on the book as well. He's doing a phenomenal job helping with the pages and stuff like that, so that you guys can get the book quicker and all that fun stuff. But anyway, I just wanted to say thank you once again, everybody. Appreciate all the support, all the love. The chat, I honestly think I'm going to miss it a little bit. I know you guys probably will. But just to let everybody know that stopped in now, next week is going to have... lost my train of thought. Next week will be on Google Hangouts. Okay, so after we're done this recording, I'm actually going to create the event tonight so that you guys, if you're on Google Plus or Google Hangouts or whatever the hell, Google Calendars and stuff, you guys can schedule that in. We'll try that out. But until then, thanks once again. Keep reading comics, keep making comics, and we'll see you then. Bye.